I mean, skateboarding was a fun thing to do in between playing music. Music was, this is going to be my career.
How are you?
I'm very good. Thank you for having me.
I think the last time I talked to you was when the last record came out and you had just sort of announced that the last tour was going to be happening. This was going to be the final one. So let me just open it up. How did the final tour feel?
It was great. It was funny because the first, I don't know, half or even more, you didn't feel like a final tour because we had a brand new record out. It was such a long tour. There was 130 something shows. So it felt like a regular album cycle at first. And I don't think it really set in until we hit Canada for the last leg, which was like 3.5 weeks. So when we started up in this January, it finally hit me on day one, like, oh man, this is like the final leg of the tour. It's like over in a couple weeks. So it took a long time to actually hit me that it was the final.
What about the last show? Like, how did you feel when you walked off stage at that last show?
I felt incredible walking off the stage because everything went so well. That whole day I was so nervous, not for, the band or if we're going to mess up or something like that. But, I'm always nervous before every show because you want it to go well. You want to do your best. But this was a different kind of feeling because if you do mess up, or not even if you, like, a lot of stuff can go wrong. We've had the PA go out for 15 minutes in the middle of the show and they have to fix it, or the lighting rig goes down, you're in complete darkness and they have to fix it. Like all these things that can go wrong. And when you have those kind of shows, you say, well, we'll make it up tomorrow. Tomorrow's another day. Whereas this time, that whole day I was thinking, man, if anything like that goes wrong, there's no making it up tomorrow. It is, or the next time we're back in town, it's just, this is it. And when we walked off stage, it just felt like nothing went wrong in any kind of way. It was just like my voice felt great. The band, none of us messed up. The crowd was amazing. Every song, I didn't mess up any lyrics. Just like all those. It just felt like the perfect show.
What did you do afterwards? Did you do anything that night?
Well, as soon as we got off stage, I thought we were going to go back to our dressing room like we normally do and change and come out and say hi to people. But we were just bombarded the second we got off stage. And I stayed in my sweaty stage clothes till 1 a.m. I never got to. So, everybody was backstage, everybody from our friends, our family, people that we'd worked with from the early days, people that we work with now. And it was just constant hugs and hellos and, congratulations. And it just all, kind of mayhem backstage.
I feel like the band's never been bigger. Like, I feel like I was, watching some of the footage and just the sold out shows and and I'm not even talking in this, because oftentimes that happens when a band is breaking up. But the last record did incredibly well, better than any other record. Was there any point where you were walking off stage going like, am I sure? Like, is this the right moment,
Yeah, there was moments like that through the whole tour. That I would have these moments on stage thinking, man, I'm really going to walk away from all of this. It's so great. And like, where could it go if we stayed? Like, would it get bigger? Because it's been getting bigger and bigger for the past, it's slowly been growing, but it has been growing for the past, decade or more. So would it continue to grow? All these questions that run through my mind. So yeah, you have those moments, but at the same time, I have this desire to just try other things. I'm not retiring. I'm just I'm choosing to try something else.
I hear you.
I don't know what that is yet.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, it's macrame or sewing or, Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I like I said, I have no idea what I'm going to do, but I have way too much energy and excitement to do stuff. Like, I don't feel my age. I feel 22, that I've just gotten out of college. I'm like ready for the world. That's how I feel right now.
I want to start talking about the book, which I just loved. I was so moved by. It was a really funny book. It was a really good insight into the actual realities of what it's like to be in a band. Some of my favorite parts of the book were like tour math, like this is how much a band gets in as an advance. This is how much it's taken away. This is how much you're left with. But man, but honesty about everything you've gone through in your life. I'll just start by saying, what made you want to tell your story in the first place?
I think, this idea of putting out a book or writing a book has been around for a little while. I've been approached over the years, and it never really quite felt the right time, or just, I don't know, something inside me just felt like it wasn't right. Now, when we decided that this was going to be a final tour and a final album, it made sense to sort of write about everything in my life up until this point and kind of just get it all out there, and everything's in the rear view and I'm just starting fresh new with everything. Like the whole story is just kind of out there. There's no secrets. I've let everything out. And now I just feel like I'm starting fresh completely with everything, like my whole life.
You start by talking about a really loving kind of portrait of your mom, who had you young, and you can get this idea that it's two of you guys in Scarborough, and then in what was the small town after Scarborough you were in?
It wasn't even a town. It was like called the Village of Keene, and it was like 300 people. It was outside of Peterborough.
Yeah, the community of Keene's very excited. They just got a shout out on the CBC, by the way. So
yeah,
so Keene and then Ajax.
Then Ajax.
Yeah. Talk to me a little bit about the bond you and your mom have from those early days.
Yeah, I mean, we're still super close. I think I can't really explain it. You know, it just feels like it was just her and I for so long. I have no brothers and sisters. She got divorced when I was 7, and it was just her and I for so long. Even when she was married early on, who was my stepdad, which I didn't know was my stepdad, you know, because they got married when I was 2, and as far as I knew, he was my real dad. But so when even he was around, I didn't like him. Like he was mean, abusive. Like nobody really, like my mom didn't, like we just kind of kept to ourselves already anyway. I already had that connection with her. When he was out of the picture, it just felt like we were just a little team. And the other thing is, like, we moved around so much, even within Scarborough or within Ajax or within Keene. Like we moved, I don't think I was ever in a place for more than a year to a year and a half was kind of the average. So, you know, you're making new friends and you're not really having them for that long, you know, so it was just her and I really.
What strikes me is that in that like instability that you were dealing with growing up, like you were, you know, moving every couple of months, you were living in several different places in the same year. You know, when you found music, it was a really powerful experience for you. And one of the things you write about in the book is like, I sort of knew right away. Like as soon as I heard music, I knew that was what, not only was I going to do that, but I was going to succeed in that was going to happen. You don't strike me as someone who believes in like divine intervention or anything like that. So like, what do you think that was?
I don't know. I always think about that. Like, did I manifest this life or did I have like a premonition? Like, I have no idea. Was I just young and naive and thought I could do anything? Or did I deep down know that this was all going to happen? I have no idea. All I know is I had that feeling way back then that everything that's happened in my life was going to come true.
And I'm going to play you something and then and you tell us why we're playing it for you. Take a listen to this. So Deryck, who is that, and why are we playing it for you?
Yes, so that would be No Effects, the song Linoleum, and probably the first song, I don't know if it was the first song I ever heard from No Effects, but it was hearing that song in particular was the sound that just got me, even just hearing it now, I still get chills from here. I still feel like it's the first time I'm ever hearing that song. And that's what made us want to start Sum 41. Listening to No Effects, you know, I'd already gotten into punk rock music, but it was the Sex Pistols and the Clash and Iggy Pop. And I didn't really know a lot about it, but I knew I liked it. I mean, Sex Pistols, they only had the one record. So it wasn't like I really had to dig much deeper. I had that record and I was obsessed with it. And then I heard No Effects and I was like, what is this? And they're like, well, it's punk rock. You know, it's like, I'm like, well, punk rock to me was like the stuff I'd already been listening to, which was the Ramones and Clash, like I said. And that was the first like newer punk that I had heard. And then that exploded, you know, for me, there was just so much there. And then you find out, okay, Fat Mike, he's the singer and he's got this record label called Fat Records. And what else is on that label? And you start going down that path. And I fell in love with bands like Strung Out and Lagwagon and No Use for a Name and Pennywise and, you know, Bad Religion, like all the Epitaph stuff as well. But No Effects is really what started it all for me going down that path. And just the idea, like once I got more into No Effects, like their humor, their even just like the songwriting ability, like there's a lot of really wild stuff going on, and a lot, especially in the earlier stuff. There's a lot of riff stuff, and it's like odd time signatures, and there is like a musicality to it that I think gets dismissed to a certain degree in punk rock. But it just kind of became the blueprint for starting Sum 41.
Is there like an ethic you liked about punk rock? Like, I don't know. I'm always really interested in people who like, there are a lot of different bands and scenes that can change people's lives. And it might be country music, it might be pop, whatever, like, but was there something about like the ethic of NoFX? Like the, when I say politics, I don't mean politics, but you know what I mean? Like the ethic.
I love the idea of do it yourself kind of mentality, to a certain degree. Obviously you do need help in a lot of ways. So, but as much as you can do on your own, it's sort of what I do now, like as Sum 41 went on, I was always looking at what everyone did, say it's a producer, an engineer, or whoever, so I could learn from them, so I could just eventually do it myself. Like I have that desire. Now, like I said, you can't ever do it all yourself. Even punk rock bands still need some help somehow. But I think there's an attitude that I fell in love with, this just not giving a fuck, which is how I already was in school. Like I didn't really have a lot of friends, and I was fine with that. I didn't like a lot of people. I was already dressing kind of different, and this just gave me this, I don't want to say permission, but you realize that there's this other culture out there that is doing that kind of stuff already, and they're great. They're a great band, and just all the bands, you just kind of felt like you were, even though I didn't know any of these bands, they were all most of them from California, thought I would never see them or meet them or anything. I'm just in high school, but I felt part of that community in a way.
You were also dead serious about the band at a time when most of my buddies, when I was growing up, played in punk bands. It was a fun thing to do, and it was like part of a community. We would go to like an all ages show and have fun and all that kind of stuff. But it seemed like pretty early on you knew that Sum 41 was not just going to be a band; it was going to be like your life. What was that moment?
Well, it started before Sum 41. The couple bands that I was in before that, the first band I ever started, which was called Eternal Death, in like late 8th grade, going to 9th grade, I thought that was going to be the band that was going to become famous. That band just, were the people who I was hanging out with and who were in that band was like the tough, wrong side of the tracks kind of crowd. And we started getting into trouble. And when we started getting arrested and charged and I was going to court, all this kind of stuff, I felt like I don't want to hang out with these guys anymore. So that band broke up. And I started finding friends who were a little bit more into just music, which there weren't a lot of people in high school. It was only like 2 or 3 people who liked guitar music. And it wasn't punk rock at the time. It was mostly like Canadian indie music. I mean, we like Smashing Pumpkins, Weezer, Green Day. But a lot of it was just kind of
like I'm Mother Earthy stuff, and
right.
Kind of
stuff, I'm Mother Earth. Yeah. But anyway, that kind of stuff. Sloan, Head, things like that. Hayden, we were listening to. I love Hayden. It was all that kind of. It was that era, so we were into all that kind of stuff. And then I heard NoFX, and first I heard Sex Pistols, and got into this sort of punk sort of stuff. But yeah. That's kind of how it all started. But to answer your question, I always thought every band I was in, which was only 2 bands before Sum 41, but I thought those were going to be successful and famous.
Like you could tell it wasn't just a summer job. This was going to be our lives.
Yeah, it was not about like, oh, this is a fun thing to do. I mean, skateboarding was a fun thing to do in between playing music. Music was, this is going to be my career.
I'm going to skip ahead a little bit to just in the interest of time, to a couple of those early songs, the songs that people would know for you best, and hopefully get a story from you. I'd be remiss not to play this one. That is Sum 41 with their world-dominating breakthrough hit, Fat Lip, the song that launched a lot of shopping carts down the mall parking lots. When I read that in the book that song almost didn't make the record at all. I was kind of blown away. Can you tell that story?
Yeah, well, it was one of those songs. Some songs are really easy to write and they come in 2 seconds and they're just, and most people will say those are the ones that are going to be your best songs. Now, I have had those kinds of songs that you write in minutes. In Too Deep was one of those songs. But Fat Lip, for some reason, took about 1.5 years to put together. It just, for some reason, it was just done in parts, and I didn't realize that all those parts could work together until later on. And I had that rap part for a long time, but I had no riff, and I had nowhere to go with it. I had no chorus, and then months later, I'd written the chorus, but thinking it was for another song, or just like, okay, here's a cool chorus. I don't know what I'll have to finish the song somehow. And after a while, I realized, I'm like, these are all kind of the same tempo. They're all in the same key. I just need a riff now. And then so I came up with that riff, which is funny because that riff was actually written as a ballad. It was really slow.
Yeah. Like that?
It was very slow, and it wasn't distorted. It was clean, and it had like acoustic behind it. And it was just this really sort of like jangly kind of slow. I was trying to write a song. There's a band called Spiritualized.
Yeah, I know Spiritualized.
Yeah. So I was trying to do something like that. It had all these like elements swirling in the background. It was like very like ethereal and atmospheric, and it had that little doodle-boom, doodle-boom, and it was really slow. And I always loved it. It sounded great. And then I thought, what if I speed that up? Because it's in the same key. And I tried it. And then there you go. Then Fat Lip was put together over time. But it was really just a riff, the rap part, and then to the chorus. And I had nothing else. I didn't have the bridge. I didn't have the breakdown. Like that took more time as well. So it just slowly got pieced together.
But it seems like in the book, when it finally got together, you were like, okay, yeah, this is going to explode. This is going to be it.
Yes and no. I mean, I thought there was something there, but I was so embarrassed to show anybody at first with the rap stuff because it would just felt like so weird at that time.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I got the courage to show it to the band, and then it still took a while before I was able to show it to anybody else, like our producer. He was the next one, Jerry Finn. And once I showed it to him, I mean, I remember I was sweating in the studio being like, I got this song. It was near the end of the recording. I was like, I feel like I got to show it to you. I don't know if it's any good or not. And I played it for him and it ended and he goes, that's going to be the first single of this album. And I was like, thank you. Cause that's what I've been thinking, but I just didn't know. It just felt like it could go either way.
Can we play a little bit of In Too Deep?
Sure.
I'm not here to pump your tires, man, but we were talking in the office about like, even if that's not your favorite Sum 41 song, it's still like a perfect pop song, like in terms of like how a pop song should be constructed, like just a perfect like Beatlesy pop song. I really love that song, and
cool.
I'm happy you recorded it. However, I was surprised to find out that two bands.
Yeah, the journey that song went on.
Yeah, and Snow, like Informer, Snow is involved. Can you tell that story?
I had written the song. It was one of those really quick songs. Within 10 minutes, the song was finished, and I liked it. I did think it was a bit poppy for Sum 41 because we were actually way more No Effect style, Pennywise style at that time. But I knew there was something special. I showed it to our manager, Greg, and he had been working with the rapper Snow on some side project they were doing. And he goes, great, that's perfect for the Snow song, for the Snow project. And I thought, oh yeah, okay, I guess so. I mean, it's not punk enough for Sum 41, but maybe this will become a hit, for somebody else. What a great thing. Cause I'm still like, I think I was either in high school or just graduated at that point. And they did it, and it actually sounded good. I actually sang on it as well on the Snow version. I'm in the chorus, and Snow sings the verses, and then MC Shan does a rap in it because MC Shan is also in the song Informer. He does the rap in that. So, it was kind of this very different version, but still pretty cool. But then that project just kind of went nowhere. I don't know what happened to it. I wasn't in the group, so I don't really know too much information. Now, after that, I go, well, now I just heard that song recorded and it does sound like a hit. I'm going to use it for Sum 41. But Greg Norrie had other ideas for it. He goes, that you're not going to use that. That's not a punk song. It's a treble charger song. I'm going to use it for treble charger. So I thought, I kind of wanted it, but treble charger is a huge band. There's another shot at it becoming a hit, and they're probably going to make it a better hit than I could. So they recorded it, and all of them agreed, including me, that it just didn't sound right for them. They didn't do a very good job. It wasn't that they didn't do a good job at it. It just didn't sound right. And then Greg was like, you know what? Maybe the song isn't a hit after all. You should take it for Sum 41 then, see if you can do something with it. So I turned it into the version that we hear now.
Do you learn something about your writing after that? Like when you're able to write, I think one thing that really, so I'm going to pump your tires one more time is, I think I didn't know in this book, and this is embarrassing for me, like how responsible you were for the writing of all these songs, like and like how much solo writing you did by yourself in rooms, just writing, churning out songs after songs after songs. And I think there's like a world in which in Canada you should be talked about in a bigger songwritery kind of way. But when you're writing punk rock and all of a sudden you write, something a little bit poppier that does so well, does that change the way you write songs at all? Does that change your compositions at all?
No, not really. Not for me. I mean, so there was a version of In Too Deep because it was a little bit poppy. So we recorded it with Jerry Finn. Was this version, this exact version. We were done with this, and we all kind of thought we want to make it a little bit heavier. So we kind of got rid of the intro the way it is, where it just starts with the guitar picking and going into vocals. We started with the big riff first, kind of like Fat Lip in a way, where it just goes digga 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 bow down bow down 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 down.
Oh yeah.
Down, and then it goes into the verse, and we felt okay. Now it's taken it away from it being so just, I don't know, summery, I guess is the way we used to describe it. It feels like this little summer sound, almost like at the time Sublime, Sugar Ray, all that kind of stuff, Smash Mouth, like we were just like trying to get it away from that summery kind of sound, right? The label hated our new version and talked us into going back to the original, which, I mean, at this point, who knows? Maybe they were right. I don't know. The song is what it is.
Were you ever asked after that to go into like pop writing rooms? Were you ever to ask like, the Max Martin-y, like, go in and go in? And you never asked, write for the next big hit,
I've been asked lots of times to write for people. I've never been asked necessarily to go into big writing rooms with big writers. It's mostly artists who have asked for songs. And I kind of always said no. I mean, for mostly the reason really was there was never any time. I describe in the book the little amount of time that I had to write all those songs. Yeah. And as you said, I'm stuck in a room alone. Every song that I wrote in those days made the album. There were no B-sides. Like I could only get 12 songs max in time. So there weren't like 3 extra songs lying around on each record. There was just, I gave you 12, that's all I got. If there's 13, that's all I had, and then we were on the road. So to write with so-and-so or this other artist, there's no time. Plus, I hated the writing process back then because it was all on my shoulders and it was so stressful and it was such a short amount of time that I began to just hate writing music. I loved it when it was done, but the process, I'm like, I just couldn't stand it.
So the whole time this stuff is happening, and this is the big revelation that came out of the book. First, even just when the book got announced, and this is when I was loving Sum 41. This is when I fell in love with In Too Deep. This is when I was in a parking lot, pushing. That's a true story. Pushing shopping carts down the Village Mall in St. John's. While listening to Fat Lip. It's unbelievable to me what you were going through that no one saw during that whole time. So I'm just going to say it for people who don't know the story. Sure. You write about this really difficult part of your life involving your former manager, Greg Norrie, who you just mentioned. He's the guy, he was in Treble Charger. He helped Sum 41 meet labels, get records made, find success. Greg was a lot older than you, was established in the Canadian music scene when you were coming up. At the same time, you write in the book about his behavior in a sexual and intimate way that you describe as incredibly manipulative and that people close to you called grooming and abuse. So my question is, what was it like for you to write that down in the book?
Oh, it was really hard to go there. But it's something that I had been struggling with and had buried, but at the same time, it was like a constant thing in my mind. Like, it consumes your thoughts, especially as you get older. It gets worse as you get older because you become more aware of life. And once once I started hitting the ages, which is my late 30s, realizing, oh, wow, when Greg was this age, I was only 16, 17, 18 when he was like mid to late 30s, like those first 3 years. And I thought, wow, like I couldn't imagine like that. And not only that, just like the power difference and just like, all of us were infatuated with his band, his music, who he was, his celebrity, all this stuff. And he became our manager. And then it just, everything started to just get wrapped all up together. Right. And over time, it turned into what it turned into. And so to answer your question though, it was hard to go there. It was really hard at first because I never thought I would talk about any of this stuff. But as I got into the writing, and as you were saying, like it was all that stuff was going on while I was writing these records. So if I was to leave it out or skirt around it somehow and act like it never happened and I just wrote these songs and everything was fine, well, then I'd be lying. And I'm like, well, how can I put out a book about my life if I'm going to leave out this huge thing that was almost a decade? I think it was like 9 years of my life, and through 4 albums of Sum 41 and a lot of like our early rise and all the songs that people know. I don't think, like, how would I not tell the truth about all that? Because it's all wrapped up.
Last time I talked to you was, I think, 3 weeks before that book came out, or a month before that book came out, and news hadn't come out yet. I mean, you and I were just having a chat. How did you feel when it actually got published and put out there?
In some ways, you're just so blinded by all the work that you don't have time for personal feelings or thoughts or retrospection or anything, right? We were on the final tour when the book came out. I had to go on stage. Like, I'm still prepping for the shows. It's like, you kind of forget that your book is coming out. Like, you're doing all this work for it, but it's like, you just move on, like, to the next thing. And then it was like book signings and interviews and all this stuff. And I'm more focused on the work rather than like how it's reacting or how I'm feeling, if that makes any sense. At least that's how I work.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's just the way I was born, that I can compartmentalize things, or because of taking on so many roles within the band over so many years that I just put those hats on and I just do the work that's in front of me. I don't know.
I don't know if you can answer this because I know there's all kinds of lawsuits happening right now, but when did you, I was waiting in the book for you to tell the band.
Mm-hmm.
Did the band find out it's not in my business, but did the band find out from the book, or did you eventually talk to the band about it?
The band found out from the book.
Jeez, Deryck. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it was because it was so difficult to talk about. It's gotten easier because I've had to talk about it so much. I'm still like in a process, like in real time as we're speaking right now, I'm still like processing the entire thing, right? Like, this is all part of it. The first step was writing it. The second step was doing the audio for it, which was really difficult.
Yeah, you had to say it all out loud, right? Yeah.
Say it all out loud for the first time ever. And I'm in a studio with people who I don't know, engineers and the producers and the people recording me who don't know the story. And then the next step was starting to do interviews about it. And it's going to continue to just go wherever it goes. And I was fine with that. I knew from the second I said, okay, I'm going to go there and I'm going to tell the truth, whatever happens is going to happen, and I'm ready for it, and I'll follow that path as far as it goes.
Yeah, and the band's going to find out. They're going to read, but I'll be there. I'll figure it out. I'll be.
Yeah, but all that too. Yes, yeah.
Yeah,
All the
yeah.
stuff that's going to be embarrassing, all the stuff that people are going to say about me, or whatever they're going to say, good or bad, and wherever this goes with wherever Greg wants to take it, like I will take it as far as it goes, to the end. I don't know where it goes from here, but I'm on the ride.
The last sort of tough thing I want to talk to you about is, and you told this story before, is, I mean, at the very beginning, you say something like, I was living this like, I couldn't believe it was going to happen to me. I was living this rock and roll lifestyle that I had sort of laughed at, but there I was fully living it. I mean, and this made news too. I mean, you became severely dependent on alcohol in 2014. You were hospitalized, you went into a coma, you had liver failure, and your doctors told you that you almost died. The thing that struck me, man, is that you talk about how there was a year that you didn't remember at all.
Well, it's not that I don't remember it at all, is that it went by so fast. 2013, I mean, it felt like a weekend.
Crazy.
Like, I have a lot of memories from it. The weird thing is I have a really good memory, and I do have a lot of memories even from being really drunk and drinking and wild nights and all this kind of stuff. So I do have a lot of memories from that year, but they just felt like it was like one big weekend, partly because it was kind of this, it was Groundhog Day. It was the same thing over and over and over again. So it wasn't like there was a lot to remember.
How did your writing change after sobriety?
Well, I think everything in life has some effect. Yes. I don't really analyze it. Yes and no. It's hard to say.
Maybe not the output, like the act of writing, like the act of making music, like the act of sitting down in the chair.
All I know is that I really fell in love with writing once I was sober, partly because I was able to make my own schedule, and I was able to, we weren't, trying to get out a whole record in 6 weeks time anymore. I was like, there's no deadline for anything. So I started to enjoy things more. But yeah, I think everything in life has some sort of effect and dictates what you do moving forward, whether it's writing. Of course, it's going to come out in my creativity. I just don't know how.
At the start of this conversation, we talked a little bit about your mom and her support through your life and how she was there for you. And it was kind of two you guys against the world. You and your wife now have two kids. First question, what did you learn from your mom, who obviously parented you in a very different country at a very, very different time, that you still take into your own parenting today?
I don't know. I mean, it's tough because our kids are so young. So my memories of my mom's parenting is once I'm older. Right. So I don't know. I think, and it's so different because my mom was so much on her own. Whereas my wife and I are so in sync, and we have such a great partnership, and we feel like we're the partners against the world at this point. So I'm in a totally different situation.
Yeah, I know what you mean. There's almost sort of this like, she had to do this by herself. Like she had to do this on her own, you know?
Well, those things hit me when I was in my mid-20s. When we were, say, like on the Chuck album, and I'm 24, and I started doing the math, and I'm like, wow, like my mom had a 7-year-old. My mom was getting divorced right now from an abusive husband and had a 7-year-old to take care of. And I'm like playing arenas and partying and hanging out at strip clubs and like living, like getting gold and platinum records from all these different countries at this, like it's a whole different world. So yeah, like that stuff hit me back then.
Right. Yeah. Look what a different life. Look what a different life I have, and what she was doing. Mm-hmm. I understand that. Last question is, and it's a little more fun, I promise. If the kids grow up to a certain age, say like 10 years from now, or 15 years from now, and they come to you and say, hey, Dad, I think we want to go on the road. We want to be in a rock band. We want to do it. What do you say?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I would encourage them to do whatever they want to do, as long as it's, it doesn't hurt anybody. But yeah, I don't think just because you're in a rock band, it's like, I mean, I love my life. I love everything I've been through. Sure, there's been some tough tough moments, and things that I don't want to relive or would never wish my kids go through. But my life's incredible. And I have everything I've ever dreamed of. So, and music gave that to me.
I can't begin to tell you how grateful I am that you wrote the book and you spent a little bit of time with us today. And I loved hearing the stories and Googling the songs as I was reading it and trying to figure out. And I'm just trying to track down that Snow version of In Too Deep everywhere I go.
I know, right? I don't think it's anywhere. I have a version of it, but
I'm gonna be bothering you for it. Congratulations on the Canadian Music Hall of Fame. Look forward to talking again closer to that. But thanks so much for your time, Deryck, and congratulations again.
Awesome, cool. Thank you so much.